Take two.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to season 3, episode 1 of the Dateable AF podcast. We're so excited to have a new season. Today, we are going to be talking to you about Come Closer. Not like that. Why intimacy feels riskier than loneliness. We want to talk to you a little bit about some changes that are coming to the pod this season. I know that our show started with dating, and our show started with specifically women who date women. But what we kept circling back to is that this pod is really about how people relate to each other. And while we do have a robust audience of women who date women, the vast majority of our audience tends to not fall under that category. So we want to just make sure we're reaching everybody who's listening. And it turns out that dating is just one place where relationship patterns show up, and they tend to show up in a lot of other places as well. So that could be in a partnership, but it could also be in a friendship, a parent relationship, or another family relationship, a coworker relationship. The same stuff just keeps popping up. So we want to make sure we're addressing all of those things.
And if you're wondering, no, we're not changing the name. We love the name. And also, dating we saw is just the beginning. And we're very excited about digging deeper. The topics that we're going to explore are going to be, we think, very interesting and deeper than the season 1 and 2. And then Dateable AF is now less about dating and more about what makes you dateable, and also makes you better in relationships across the board, as Dr. Kyle mentioned.
Yeah, dateable in life, as we like to say. Maybe you're not officially dating, but you got to be dateable in your life in general.
Oh,
In
girl.
all your relationships.
Mm-mm, mm-mm. And I know, and can I just open this up with my experience that I had the other night?
Oh, God, everyone's going to want to hear about this.
So Sarah and I have been talking about the seasons, and I really have at times I questioned, is this a topic we really need to discuss? Because this is a skill that people have.
Yep.
Well,
and I often remind her it is not a skill people have. It is a skill people should have, but people out there are not skilled, my friend.
No, and you always said, no, you should see the people that come into my office. And I always sort of had my doubts until the other night when I was at Josephine House with a friend of mine, and we happened to have a couple that was on their first date sitting next to us. And oh my God,
it was a disaster.
Sarah, he broke first he was 45 minutes late. That chick sitting next to me was down into her second glass of wine and threw an appetizer plate before he showed up.
She should have left.
I know. Then he talked with a very loud voice, so we could hear that he was only talking about himself. I don't think he knew shit about her. And he told her at some point that he had served a little time in prison. Now he saw jail. He saw that as a little bit of a downtime in his life.
I guess it was.
Guys, if I had been able to turn a microphone on he broke every rule. And you got to love this, folks. She got the call. From a friend. And we're the friend, and we were watching her as she was going, oh my God, it's an emergency. I'll be right there. And he's just sitting there.
He was oblivious.
Oblivious.
The friend phone call is something that every woman does before a date, or should do before a date, so that you have an out. Your friend calls you in the middle of the date with an emergency. And if you don't want to get out of it, then you just act like it's a normal phone call. But if you need to get out of it, guess what? Your friend has an emergency and you got to go.
And so she scooted out the door. The guy asked for a kiss on the cheek before she was leaving. Oh. And she gave him one begrudgingly. I know. No. So everybody, it was a violation there. But the best part of the evening was when he turned to me and my friend to ask how we thought his date went, because it was a first date, and whether or not it was going to be a friend thing or a second date. And I simply looked at him and said, no. That's
No.
all I said. No.
You're not going to be friends and you're not going to have a second date. There was also a part that I don't know if you left this out on purpose, but that he told the waitress the amount of money he had
Oh,
left on his debit card and told her to let him know before they reached the limit.
and she came in and she said, "You're at $230." And he said, "That's good enough for one more glass of champagne, right?"
Oh my God.
It was everything I could do not to
Mm-mm.
just slip him a Dateable AF card. I didn't have one with me, but
I know.
so to the point being that at the moment that I think that these topics are just really oversimplified and we are going to dig deeper now. I have to believe Dr. Kyle. She faces these situations every day.
On the daily. And it's shocking. Okay, so let's just recap that for our listeners.
Okay.
A, be on time to your date. B, ask your date questions about themselves. Don't just talk about yourself. C, go to a place that you're prepared to pay if you need to pay. Don't get to the limit of your debit card and have to ask the waitress to tell you when you've reached the limit. Yeah, so many things. So many issues with this one.
And you know,
Also, if you've been in jail, not that that rules you out. I have some very good friends that have spent some time in jail. Tracy, I'm looking at you.
I was going to say, not us, not us,
Not us. But anyway, my friend Tracy spent a little time in the county jail, but we always like to refer to that as her time in prison.
a bad patch.
It sounds better. Yeah. Anyway, but it's not that you don't tell someone that, but that might not be what you lead with on the first date. Like you want to lead with your more positive traits. So
orange is the new black, baby.
that's right. That's right.
God.
So anyway, all that to say, we still might need to help you guys with some of those lighter topics, but we're also going to be diving into some meatier things, including today, where we're really talking about intimacy and why people tend to avoid it. Because most people say they want intimate relationships. And just to clarify, we're talking about emotional intimacy, not sexual intimacy here. People use those words interchangeably sometimes, but what people really want is to be connected to someone else, but without exposure or vulnerability, which is impossible.
Yeah. And I do think when you say the word intimacy, people immediately do tend to think about it as sex, as romance, or as this level of constant togetherness. And what I like about today's conversation is that we're going to really talk about the deeper, more, I think, probably more critical aspect of intimacy, the part that people struggle with. And that's really showing yourself.
Yes. Yep. Being seen is really hard. And I think people crave closeness and they want to be seen, but we also do a million subtle things to keep other people at arm's length. And that, those two things are at cross purposes with each other, unfortunately.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody last night and just talking about the fear of that exposure and there can be the fear that you're exposing yourself, which makes you more vulnerable. It does. There is no doubt about it.
For sure.
And then there's the fear that your person or whoever you expose that to is going to share it with somebody else.
Yeah. Yep. There has to be trust there for sure. Yep. And so if we're talking about a definition of intimacy, I do think that it has a few different components. Number one, it's allowing yourself to be emotionally seen. It's letting someone else matter to you as opposed to like, easy come, easy go. You have to be able to own that this relationship matters to you and allowing that relationship to have some impact in your life.
Yeah. That's, I think, a really hard one is, I think we all want to be seen. Yeah. We don't all know how to expose ourselves so that we can be seen. But I think that that's the ultimate feeling, is being seen by somebody else.
Yes.
But allowing impact is an interesting one to me. Yeah, say a little more about that, because I think that one is pretty powerful and a lot of us struggle with it.
Yep. So I see people all the time acting like they don't care. Well, he didn't call me back, but it's okay. Like, I don't care. Or my friends all got together and I didn't get invited, but it's okay. Like, I don't really like those people anyway, as opposed to saying, this person matters to me and how they behave toward me impacts my life. There's a vulnerability in that, and you can't have intimacy without it.
One of the things I've heard you do that I really like, it, I think it's to this point, is if someone disappoints you that you're trying to get close to, you are able to say that hurt my feelings instead of saying I'm mad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's sort of a piece of this, is that by saying you hurt my feelings means that you mattered to me. Like
Yeah.
you know, that I cared enough about you that you could hurt my feelings, versus someone who makes you mad. That's just an easier emotion to get into to keep you at a distance, right?
Yes, it's so true. And anger is big and powerful. If you imagine, if I'm angry, I'm making myself bigger and I'm going to, stomp around or act out. But if I'm sad or scared, then I'm small and vulnerable. And people tend to avoid those things. And I do think it prevents us from having intimacy with other people if we default to anger.
That's interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the fear piece and why intimacy triggers fear. Yeah, I mean, it can be a scary thing.
I think so. I think the biggest thing that people fear is loss of control. If I care too much about you or I let myself get too close to you, then I'm not going to be able to fully manage the outcome, which it's an illusion to think we can manage an outcome anyway. But I do think there's this fear that someone's going to have emotional leverage over us. Like you said, if we are truly seen by someone, then someone might have the power to tell someone else about our vulnerabilities or to use those vulnerabilities against us. And I think that loss of control gets really scary.
Bringing this back around a little bit to dating, is that in my personal experience, I find that just for me personally, I'm not interested unless someone can show that they have the capacity to expose that side of themselves.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to get bored. Frankly, I'm in it because, and I actually don't quite understand where you go with someone if you don't eventually get there. But I suppose, and you would know this, I suppose there are a lot of relationships that are long-term relationships who don't have that. Like, they never go there together.
Yeah, this is one of those things, like you were saying earlier, it's so hard to believe when I say it out loud, but you would be amazed at the things couples do not know about their long-term partner. And I'm not talking about obscure things like, oh, I thought your favorite color was red. Not that, but literally, I don't know who my partner voted for in the last election. I don't know if my partner has an orgasm when we have sex. I don't know what my partner dreams of doing when they retire. Like, these really, to me, basic things that of course you would know these things. And people just don't talk about them.
Yeah.
It's baffling, honestly. And I don't know how you find fulfillment in a relationship when you don't have that. But I think a piece of it too is it's not so much that people fear rejection. It's that people fear being known, or people fear that if someone sees me for who I really am, what if they don't like that? Like, what if they see me clearly and they still walk away? So I think that fear of being seen can be so powerful.
Yeah. And I would counter that a little bit with saying that, guys, if that is your fear, and I think it is a lot of people's fear, that you might reframe that, because I think that there's so many unspoken things that can come to you in a relationship if you do show yourself, if your other person knows you. There are so many moments when you are not trying to explain how you feel or explain everything to somebody, because you've shown them yourself enough that they go, oh, I know what she's doing right now because this is a sensitive thing for her. It
Yeah.
also allows you to sort of be protective when you see your person that you care about being put in a position like that, and you know that they're uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And I think that it allows you to be there in a different way for your person.
Yes, for sure. And I really like that. It's like people you have history with, sort of, going back to your childhood best friends that knew your family. Those people just know you and they just get you because they've seen you over decades. And that is such a good feeling. So if you're not allowing that to happen in your relationships, all kinds, try it and see if it feels better than what you've already experienced.
Yeah, I mean, I will say for me that I do have that in my friendships is specific, not all of them, of course, but in the handful of my friends that are my what I would call my intimate friends. Um, Absolutely, I think they know me in that way. They've seen all sides of me, and and I will get the phone call like, "Hey, I don't think everything's okay with you right now."
Yeah, they see it and you never
Mhm.
even had to tell them. So I think that's really great. The reason that people get into these patterns sometimes, I think, is because of things that they learned in earlier relationships. So that might have been in their families or earlier dating relationships, but people get the idea that closeness is equated with conflict, that when you're close to somebody, that means you're going to fight with them, or that if you need something, you're automatically going to be disappointed. So you just don't let yourself need anything from them. Or that if you have some kind of dependence on someone, that's going to lead to danger. And we activate these templates automatically when we enter a new relationship. And sometimes that just doesn't serve us very well.
And when you think about meeting somebody, whether you're trying to build a friendship or whether you're actually dating somebody, how do you know how to slowly, because this isn't something that's also, you don't want to share your guts with somebody like you've been to prison on the first date, right? So,
Yes.
how do you slowly sort of roll these things out so that you're building intimacy a little bit at a time?
God, that's such a good question. And I think sometimes people equate over disclosure with intimacy, and those are not the same thing. If you are trauma dumping and telling someone all about your childhood abuse on the first date, that is not the same as intimacy. Intimacy has to be built over time. But what it means is that you don't posture, you don't pretend to be someone that you're not. You may not share the whole depth of something, but you might not tell the details of your childhood abuse, but you might say, man, I had some struggles in my childhood. We'll talk about that sometime. So you're not pretending like you grew up in a perfect family, but you're also not diving too deep for what the relationship can support.
Yeah, I think that's probably a very tricky walk that people are always navigating, and especially in dating, is when do I tell people what? What do
Yeah.
I and I feel like a good rule of thumb, at least for me, is if somebody's asking me a question or we're on a topic, it's better if just talk a little bit about how something makes me feel. So
Yeah.
I'm not exposing a trauma in my childhood necessarily, and that could come later on. But I feel like those tiny little micro doses of intimacy are me not just talking about he said, she said. It's more about when this happened, I felt this way.
Yes.
And then I
Absolutely.
reacted like this.
Yep. Yeah, because that's exposing something about you and how you feel, not necessarily about an event that happened. And yeah, I think that's a really good distinction.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about why loneliness can sometimes feel safer than intimacy.
You know, again, I was just having this conversation. Um, of course, I mean, I think that loneliness is something you kind of feel like you're controlling in your own little space. Exposing yourself, then it puts you outside of what you at least perceive is within your sphere of control. And I certainly do think that people's past has a lot to do with how much they're willing to risk emotionally. If they've been really hurt, a lot of damage early on, then I think they're, likely to be slow to dip their toe in that water.
Yep. Because even though loneliness hurts, it's still familiar and predictable. And like you said, people can control that to some degree. And that if you don't fully attach to someone, then you can't really be abandoned by them because you never had attachment in the first place.
Yeah. I said last night, again, I've been out I've done had a few dating experiences. And that I would rather have one experience with someone for 6 months where we are amazingly intimate, connection is great, sex is great, it has some emotional depth, and lose it and have my heart broken, than to have 6 years of a slow slog where I am safe, but I don't have any of that other stuff.
Yeah. It's just not satisfying.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I think that people, because of this fear, they don't let themselves experience the joy and fulfillment that you just described. And I think instead people choose, they'll say, oh, I'm emotionally independent, or they'll let themselves stay in a situationship for a long time, or just be surface level close, like the couples that I see in my office that maybe have been together for years, but they don't have a real closeness. And those are just all ways of avoiding emotional risk.
That's why, and you lesbians out there, that's why y'all break up when you hit lesbian bed death, because you got nothing else. But this is actually a good moment for me to throw in a little bit of the research that continues to point at why it's important, if you struggle with intimacy, to take the risk. I was looking at this. It was a researched backed information about the 7 habits of intimate relationships.
Okay.
And the studies have found that we live longer, healthier, happier lives when we are closely connected. That just holding your partner's hand when something threatening happens reduces the brain's alarm bells and calms the nervous system. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, I love that.
And wounds, like actual physical wounds, heal faster when you feel other support. Get that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I know. Seriously. And then conversely to that, people without intimate relationships have much higher mortality rates, and young adults have weaker immune systems.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I believe that about mortality rates because I think when you're lonely, I think you have less reason to want to live. And yep.
Well, and this goes to real quick, the idea of you can live alone, which I do, does not automatically mean that you're lonely. And that's the thing is you can love your alone time. If you have intimate relationships, then it makes your alone time feel so great.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, just to clarify, that has nothing to do with being single or living alone. You can keep deep, meaningful connections with people, whether you have a partner or not, or whether you live with someone or not. So for sure, it's super important. Let's talk about ways that intimacy avoidance shows up. How do we see people doing this? I would say one of the things I see most often is that people keep relationships really busy, but not deep. So they might be doing things a lot of the time, or, planning activities with their friends, but not pausing to have those deeper conversations with people.
Yeah. I know I know some people that just don't want it.
Yeah.
They just say, oh my God, we're just here to have, they say is, we're just here to have fun. I'm
They're
thinking,
scared.
I know. And I think to myself, okay, am I a freak? Because I'm having more fun if I'm doing something more meaningful. Now, if we're going to play games and we're going to talk smack, it's great. I love it. It's fun. But I can only do so much of that.
Yes. Yeah. It's like a diet of junk food. Junk food tastes really great for, a short period of time, but eventually, you crave something that's a little more nutritious. So I think it's a very similar thing. I think that sometimes one of the ways people avoid intimacy is instead of expressing a need, they just overfunction. So rather than asking for help with something, they'll just break their back trying to do it all themselves. And I think also people will intellectualize their feelings instead of sharing them. So, people might talk themselves out of feeling sad or scared about something instead of just opening up and letting someone know how you're feeling.
Yeah, that one I think is I have to, that just for me personally, I have to monitor that one because I can intellectualize the hell out of my feelings.
Yes. Yeah.
I can get all
You
up in my
do
head.
that sometimes.
I'm going to find one of these that fits you in a minute. I'm going to point one of these out. Actually,
I'm
now
sure
that I
there are
look at
plenty of-
them, I think all of them do.
It could be. Could be. So the thing that I want you guys to hear about this is that, avoidance isn't always pulling away, that sometimes it looks like staying around, but just staying really guarded. And so just practice paying attention to how open you feel or how closely you're holding your cards when you're around other people, and see what it would feel like to maybe not be quite so protected.
So Sarah and I have been accused of being open books, which we are. So we scare people that hold their intimacy close to the
I know.
vest.
I'll ask a question that I feel is totally benign, and then I just look around at the shock on people's faces and realize I've stepped in it somehow.
Yeah, actually, she's more guilty of that than I am now that
I
I
agree.
think
I'm pretty
about
guilty
it.
of it.
There's people out there that are scared of her.
I think it's true. It breaks my heart.
Sort of.
Kind of, yeah.
So be ready. Be ready. Have your girl pants on when you're with her.
That's right. Yep. If you're scared of me, you might not be my people. I'm just saying.
Oh my goodness. We have so what actually helps? Without forcing intimacy, because that's not a good thing and that's weird. So let's talk a little bit about what helps.
Yeah. And this is interesting because when I think back about your recent foray into the dating bee, I do think, it's something like you said, you crave that intimacy. You want that depth with people. And I don't think that you get that by pushing harder or demanding people to be vulnerable or shaming. And I don't think any of those are really your style, except maybe not necessarily pushing harder, but I know that you really invited people that you dated to open up to you. And sometimes they just, didn't have that ability or they got too scared and you still wanted that.
Yeah. I definitely, at some point along the way, and I'm going to invite that in because otherwise, like I said, I'm going to be bored. And so I think that it is very tricky balance because somebody can say that they just don't move along that continuum at the same rate. But for me, what I will say about that is that I'm not asking for the kitchen sink either. What happens is that in many instances where we have had multiple conversations, there is more to get. There has just got to be you got to throw a little bit of chum in the water. And so it doesn't need to be your life story, but there needs to be something else that I'm learning about you other than that you are great in bed.
Yeah. Yep, that's true. I mean, the great in bed will carry you for a little ways,
It
but
sure does. Sure does.
not that we're naming any names or anything, but
And there's no complaints, zero complaints.
absolutely. So if you don't find intimacy by pushing harder or, demanding it, some things that I think do help are that you can name the fear without being judgmental or of yourself or the other person. You can say, man, this feels really scary to share this, but I'm going to tell you something. Or like we said earlier, letting intimacy grow in tolerable doses. This isn't like you're dumping your deepest, darkest secrets on someone on the first date. It's like test the waters with something and see how the person responds and, practice kind of honest, low stakes emotional sharing. And if it gets uncomfortable, that's okay. Like just stay around, stay present and see what happens next.
Yeah. It's when I think about this, I also think about just how sometimes the rhythm and flow with somebody is one person is so much easier than another. And,
Mhm.
I have a person that is very dear to me and definitely does not move along the continuum of intimacy at the same rate that I do. Yet, when we have reached those points where we're sort of testing the waters to share that, she's excellent at explaining where she sits in that.
Mhm.
That there may not be she may not meet me equally there, but she meets me there with the understanding of when she can get there or what that's about.
Yeah.
And that to me is great. Like to me, that's enough. I understand so much more about you the minute you lay that out.
Yep. I love that. And yeah, that's a good point that it doesn't have to be equal, but it does need to be kind of equitable, like from each according to his ability. And if someone doesn't quite have that ability, but they're trying and they're putting it out there as much as they can, I think that will carry things along for a while.
Anytime somebody owns the way something makes them feel, I think it's a whole lot easier to be with them. So I don't need to know all the details in that exact moment about a situation if I know how you feel about that.
Right. Exactly. And the feeling part tends to be the more vulnerable piece anyway. So that's most important. And so I think it's important to just remember that intimacy is a skill. It's not a personality trait. It doesn't have to do with introversion, extroversion. It's something that we practice and we get better at the more we do it. And that safety has to be built. It can't be demanded.
Yep. And and I mean, guys, seriously, these are pretty deep topics, but these are the things that are below the surface that make or break relationships and so often. And
Yes.
I also think that these are the things that you may go along and you put a lot of energy into a relationship for a very long time, keeping it on a surfacey level, and you're not slowly taking it there. And you spend a year and all of a sudden you look up and you're like, for some reason, I'm not happy here. I don't like this, or we're not,
Yeah.
So I just feel like these are the things that we don't talk about that much that have a big impact on relationships, making it or not.
Yes. Well, let's talk about some takeaways that we want our listeners to get from today. The first one I would say is that avoiding intimacy doesn't mean that you don't want connection. It just means that closeness probably has felt unsafe to you at some point. And so you have to figure out how to create safety for yourself around that.
Yeah, and loneliness may feel familiar. So just knowing that if that is the feeling that is you felt the most, then that is going to be your safe place and your go-to place. But it doesn't have to be permanent. You can move out of that place and feel something else.
Yes. Yeah, real intimacy grows through small, repeated risks. So again, it doesn't have to be all at once. Just try a little bit of it and see how that goes because you will see the intimacy in those relationships growing as you do that.
And as we mentioned before, not forcing closeness. Um, you don't need to force it. You need to tolerate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And If intimacy feels risky, it's not because you're incapable. It's just because you learned how to protect yourself really well. And you just need some new tools in your toolbox. So, if you want to reflect on this with a partner, with a friend, the question that we have for you is, where do you notice yourself pulling back when things start to get close? We would love to hear from you if you talk to your partner about these things or if you talk to your friends about these things. And we want to know what's happening in your life with regard to intimacy. One of our favorite things about the podcast, y'all, is getting feedback from you, whether that is in the form of an email to us, info@dateableaf.com. You can DM us on social media. On Instagram, we are at dateableaf. And we really, really want to hear your thoughts and questions. One of the things that we're hoping to incorporate in this season is maybe even a call-in segment. But until then, you will hear your questions on our after party. So please do reach out to us.
Yeah, and we want to we do have a number of people listening that have direct contact with us. So they either have texting information, they text us on our personal line or send us emails. And we love that too. That's great. And we do get that feedback, but we would love to get more feedback from the broad audience. And we would love to, if you have some suggestions or ideas about the way that you prefer to give feedback, we're open to that. If we haven't given you a platform in which you feel comfortable, let us know.
Yes, absolutely. So that is a wrap for today. And as always, we want to thank you for listening to the Dateable AF podcast, where we help you find your happy ending.
And remember, be bold, be kind, and for the love of self-respect, don't text your ex, stay dateable.
AF.